Okay, so we are now live. And
the numbers are going up.
Check.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to watch that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So welcome everybody that's joining us today. Oops, I just did that by mistake. Glad you're here. Boy, what a perfect weather day, like perfect. Yeah. I tried a couple times to work. I have a covered front porch and tried a couple times to work out there today, but I ended up having to come in for whatever. Like, darn, would have been a good day. Be outside.
It definitely would have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went up briefly to do an errand and it was very enjoyable. Saw a rabbit out on the lawn and
it's too warm for me.
Yeah, it's actually a little hot now. I feel like it was cooler earlier, but you know, headset and all that stuff. So it's good. And I was hearing the puppy barking a little bit earlier, so hopefully she'll be good for an hour and a half. If you see me leave, you'll know why. It's take her out or something.
My cat's meowing.
I heard that.
That's my little cat. He's got little meows.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
if
everyone's getting their animals, let me know. We have baby turkeys and baby chickens right now.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
You bring those out, I'll bring my bearded dragon and they can like have a stare off.
Wow.
Wait,
Yeah.
I have a bearded dragon too. I can go up and get little dude. Yeah.
They can all just bob their heads at each other.
Yeah. Yep. That's cute. Karen, how old is your bearded dragon?
4.5.
17.
wow.
Wow.
No,
That is impressive.
That's amazing.
it is. She really shouldn't be with us anymore, but yeah, it was my daughter's, of course, right? She's like, oh, mom, we need a bearded dragon. And so I gave in and she goes off to college. Guess where the bearded dragon stays, right? Yeah. So we're buddies. She's really cute. So.
Yeah, they are cute. Yeah,
they good personalities. Like I can be in the room that she's in and just like, use my voice and call her. She looks up, she knows. Loves water. Do you put yours in like a tub of water?
He doesn't like it. So I did that for a while, but now I converted his terrarium to a bioactive terrarium. So he's got soil to dig in and he gets his moisture that way.
Very nice. I had always wanted to do that. That was a goal, but I never got there. So
it was such a project. There's 200 pounds of soil in his.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. I have to see a picture of that when you get a chance.
There's pill bugs, like there's a bunch of decomposers. There's springtails. That's got like, bacteria in there to decompose his poops and then there's Opuntia cacti growing in there.
Wow.
Which are edible. He can eat them, although he just scratches them.
Of course.
And I've tried a few other plants, but they haven't really done well. It's just the cacti in there now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole little ecosystem.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fascinating. That'll be my next project for next bearded dragon, maybe. So.
If you do it, let me know. I'll send you the links to all the things that I referenced when I was doing it because it was a big project.
It's a big project. Yeah. Yeah. Which is probably why I never got to it. And she's pretty happy where she's at. So yeah, it's obviously doing something right. 17, right?
Yeah, I'd say you're doing just fine. I shouldn't change anything.
Right, exactly. Especially now, crazy. So what do you think? Should we get started? I haven't even been checking our accounts, but
702. We got 54 attendees.
I got 58 on mine.
58. Yeah. Okay. Catch up.
Well, that's including us.
Right. Okay. Exactly. Yep. So they'll come, some people might show up a little bit later. So I think we will begin just so we stay on time. So again, welcome everybody to, I guess it's May. I don't know how that happened, but it's May's Backyard Forestry in 90 Minutes Online. So we're glad you're here today. For those that don't know, my name is Lori Jensen, Executive Director of the New Jersey Forestry Association. Before we begin, just a little housekeeping rules, or housekeeping stuff. At the end of during the presentation and at the end, we will be taking your questions. So we ask that if you have a question at any time during the presentation, feel free to pop it in the Q&A and we will address it when we can. Feel free to stop by the chat to say hi. We'll be monitoring that throughout the webinar. We will be recording this presentation, or we are recording it. So we will give you a copy afterwards and pop it up on YouTube, I believe is what we do. So again, we're glad you're here. I'm going to now hand the presentation over to the NJFA president, Andy Kim. How you doing tonight, Andy?
Good. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. And welcome to the May issue of Backyard Forestry in 90 Minutes Online. So we're glad to have everybody on board. Just a few little other things that I will add to Lori's housekeeping. I got mine. We will have another session in June, which is called Sustainable Jersey City. And Kieran is kind of overseeing that one for us. And so, you know, we try to keep a couple months ahead, and we are working on an agenda for future topics. The committee that works on this had a very good meeting a week or so ago to talk about different topics. And we hope to keep you interested. One of the things, if there is a topic that is of particular interest that you think might be of interest to a lot of people, by all means, let us know. You know, you can throw it into the chat, or you can send us an email later or whatever. But yeah, we're trying to maintain topics of interest to a lot of people. So.
Yeah, if I can jump in real quick for that Sustainable Jersey City thing, just as a little commercial. If you are involved in your local shade tree commission or similar committee, and you're looking for more tools to help manage your green resources, Sustainable Jersey City, that's what they do. And they've got a really good example they're going to show us of hundreds of volunteers in Jersey City performing a tree inventory, GIS tree inventory with maps and everything. And it's very impressive. And the tool is transferable to other towns. So I'm very excited for that one. And if you are involved in urban forestry or know people who are, I suggest you attend.
Thank you. So a number of the things that we do to support forest landowners, and we've been through all this before. We have our newsletter website, annual meeting, New Jersey Woodland Stewards Program, Backyard Forestry 90 Minutes, which is what this is, landowner representation. And one of the things that we have done in terms of landowner representation and legislative monitoring, the New Jersey Forestry Association has recently joined the Green Industry Council, so that we will have more of a seat at the table and what goes on in Trenton. And actually, there is some legislation right now that we're monitoring very closely, and we are providing some testimony on. So if you're a landowner, we are thinking about what you're doing and about what's important to you as a landowner, and we will continue to do that. The other thing we do is we support non-woodland owners, and one of the benefits that people will get is the fresh air, clean water, recreation, wildlife habitat, and forestry education, which is what this is. You know, we do have this event to help reach out to people and give them a little bit more familiarity with forests and what's important to, and why forests are so important to all of us. So we do support woodland owners, and we support non-woodland owners. And this is a crazy screen that we put together. There's been a lot of, you know, a lot of people don't really understand maybe what forest stewardship is. So one of the programs that we have, our Woodland Stewards program in New Jersey. The other program that is important that I've been through, and some of our other members have been through, is the Pennsylvania Forest Stewardship Program. We call it Woodland Stewards, they call it Forest Stewards. But just to define what forest stewardship is, for Pennsylvania, forest stewardship is the wise management and use of our forest resources to ensure their health and productivity for years to come. And then in the New Jersey Forest Stewardship Act that was voted into law more than 10 years ago, part of that was the management of forest land and its natural resources shall be based on the principle of conservation. That is, the plan shall be designed to sustain the productivity of the forest land and its natural resources in perpetuity. So you can see in both of them, Pennsylvania, they're saying for years to come. New Jersey, we're saying in perpetuity. So one of the things about forests is that they are dynamic. They're always changing. You can look at a forest today and you go back in 10 years and it's going to be different. You know, some trees will have survived, some won't survive. They've gotten bigger. They're living things. So we need to protect it. So I know there's a lot on one screen there, but moving right along, if you're not a member of New Jersey Forestry Association, we certainly would invite you to attend. You can go to the www.njforestry.org and you can join there. You can take advantage of more of the things that we have. You get our newsletter. We also have member-only virtual meetings. We're hoping to have another one in June. We're gonna have 4 of them a year. So there are some topics that are open only to members only. So to do that, you have to join. So we hope we can convince you that if you enjoy these things, we can get you a lot more information. So with that, I go back to Lori to introduce our speaker tonight.
Okay, thank you, Andy. And it is my pleasure to actually introduce our presenter today. Some of you may actually recognize Amy because we just talked about the Woodland Stewards Program, and we were thrilled to have Amy participate. I think we decided it was the last time that we actually had it, which was in 2019. So again, great to have you here. Hopefully Kieran's cat is not going to overtake your presentation. I don't think so. But Amy, again, very thrilled to have you here. And I will stop sharing my screen so you can begin to share yours.
Okay, well, thank you, Lori. Thank you, Andy and Kieran. It's great to be here. I appreciate the invitation, and it's wonderful to see so many friendly names in the participant list. I can't see your faces, but thanks to all the Rutgers environmental stewards I see my Essex County friends, Tara and Jen. Really great to be supported by some friendly names. So let me pull up my screen and we will talk about water, trees, and riparian buffers. And just so you know, I am Amy Rowe with Rutgers Cooperative Extension. I work in Essex and Passaic counties, but I am all over the state. It's not just in my county, not just not just Essex and Passaic. I do all kinds of things, and I see my friend Rick from the Rutgers Organic Land Care Program. So we do all kinds of things in Extension, and if you're not familiar with Extension, we are the outreach arm of the university, and so we bring the research and the knowledge that is coming out of the university out to the local level. And we have an office in each county in the state. Now we have a new Hudson County office, so it's very exciting, and we are here for you. Please contact your local extension office if you have questions, but I just wanted to introduce that really quickly. Tonight, I will be talking about water, trees, and riparian buffers, and we will be doing this at a fairly superficial level. I'm not going to get down into the kinds of things you should be planting for riparian buffers or anything like that. We're just going to do the overview and get into why we need riparian buffers, why we need to protect our waterways. And so please don't hesitate to put questions in the chat, and we will possibly take questions as they come, or maybe we'll wait to the end depending on the nature of the questions. But really happy to be here. So let's just dive right in. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. I can't see any of you guys. I can't see the chat. So Lori, please let me know if there's anything going on.
Yep. So far, everything looks fantastic, Amy. So we're good to go.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So before we dive down into definitions and vocabulary and things like that, just wanted to go back to some basics of environmental protection. And you guys may be familiar with Rachel Carson's landmark book, Silent Spring. It was basically an environmental landmark publication that really got into how all of our relationships are formed and what we're doing in the environment, how humans are impacting society and impacting ecosystems, and that there are connections between all living things on Earth. So between the plants and the soil, plants and other plants, plants and animals, and then humans, obviously. And unfortunately, humans disturb these relationships, but hopefully we can be aware of what we're doing and make sure that we try to tread as lightly as possible. And so I just wanted to reference that kind of as a context for all the things that we're going to be talking about, because unfortunately we need to protect our waterways because of human development and because of all of the things that we need to live in a society. So let's really go back to basics and what's happening in terms of our environment, what's happening in terms of human development. And so I need to define impervious surfaces for you guys. So this is basically any hard surface that does not allow water to penetrate. So we're talking about roads, driveways, rooftops, even sports fields can be impervious because they're so compacted that they're not allowing water to flow through. And unfortunately, there have been people that reference impervious surface and all of our asphalt as the predominant American vegetation, because we just have so many roadways and so many parking lots. You know, giant box stores have hundreds of parking spaces, that unfortunately this has become, you know, part of our society. And because we have all of these hard surfaces, we are unfortunately having a problem with something that's called stormwater runoff. And so hopefully you guys can see this. So basically, the more impervious surfaces we have, the more water and runoff we're going to have during and after any rain event. And so basically, when it rains, all of the precipitation that's landing on all these hard surfaces has to go somewhere. And most of the time in your residential area, it's going into the street, into our stormwater system, like a catch basin, and down into the sewers. But most of the time, those sewers are connected to some receiving water body. So you may think, oh, well, all that water just goes into the sewer, and you don't really think about where it's going. But in many cases, it's actually going to a river, a stream, and eventually out into, you know, the ocean, into our bays. And unfortunately, with all of that stormwater, we're also collecting all of the pollutants that water is picking up on its way. So solids, oils, grease, debris, litter, all those drinking water bottles that people don't recycle properly. And unfortunately, we have both a water quality issue with all of those contaminants, but also a water quantity issue with flooding. You can see in this picture on the right, we have a waterway that's been overwhelmed with stormwater runoff, and you can see the stream bank is starting to erode. You can see that the stream is becoming impaired because of all of this runoff and all of the scouring that's happening and the erosion. And so let's see. So unfortunately, we have our impact of society. So on the left, you have the water, I guess, water processes for a natural system. So we have shallow infiltration at the superficial level into the soil. We have deep infiltration down into our groundwater. You have a little bit of runoff, we can't avoid that, but then we have a lot of evapotranspiration back into the atmosphere. But in our developed society, we have a lot more runoff. We're at approximately 50 to 55% runoff, a lot less infiltration. And then we still have our evapotranspiration because that water is still going back up into the atmosphere to a degree when we have all these impervious surfaces. And so there's just no way for that water to get down into the soil, back down to groundwater. So we need to manage this somehow. I'm seeing a message that my internet connection is unstable. Hopefully you guys can still hear me and I didn't drop. So I'm going to continue.
Yep, you're good so far. I know you
Okay.
froze for a moment, but you're back. So I'm keeping my
Okay.
fingers crossed, okay?
Lori and I practiced this earlier and I had the same problem. So hopefully I won't lose you guys. Thank you for the patience on my very rural internet here.
If it happens again, you can turn off your video and that'll help with your connection.
Okay, well, we'll do that. You guys don't need to see my beautiful face. But in order to understand how our stormwater is being generated and where our water is going, you need to understand the concept of a watershed. I'm sure you've heard the term before, but sometimes people get confused about what exactly it is. And a watershed is simply, it's like a funnel. It's all the land that drains to a receiving water body within some kind of geographical divide. Sometimes that divide could be mountains, it could be buildings, it could be a lot of different things. And so in my territory, the Essex and Passaic counties, we have the Passaic River watershed. So most of Essex and Passaic counties drain into the Passaic River and its watershed. And so our water management is broken up into watersheds throughout the state because water does not follow county or municipal borders. It is a regional issue. And so we all need to work together to manage this water. So our watersheds are collecting all the water that's flowing down from those higher elevations, from upstream to downstream. And then don't forget that our watershed also includes groundwater and that recharging of our rivers and streams. And then eventually our watersheds do get out into the bay, into the Atlantic Ocean, eventually here in New Jersey. But those watersheds are important in terms of managing our stormwater, managing what's happening in terms of flooding. And so I just wanted to introduce that concept so that what the rest of what I'm going to say makes sense. So why do we care about this? So we have stormwater runoff. This is coming from all of our developed land and all those hard surfaces. But what does that mean? So that means that during rainfall events, we have increased peak runoff flow volume. So that means that sometimes our rivers and streams can't handle all of that quantity of water that's coming through our storm sewer system very quickly, because not only do we have a volume increase, but usually that water is moving very quickly. And so you get what's called peak flow. So during the rain event, you have all the water flowing and everything is hitting our water body all at once. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of riparian buffers and why the buffers can help. But this also leads to decreased flows during dry periods because all those hard surfaces don't allow that water to infiltrate down into our soil, down into the base flow for our rivers and streams. And as I said before, that stormwater is collecting all of those contaminants along the way. So solids, our nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, as well as metals, oils, and then trash and litter, they're ending up in our waterways. And so all of these things are leading to a loss of the critters in our rivers and streams. So we're talking micro and macro invertebrates. We're talking about a loss of diversity. We're talking about ecological systems being impacted and unable to carry certain types of species because they're being hit with contaminants, or the water's flowing too quickly, or they're being flooded out. So we're also losing habitat for all of these animals, all of these invertebrates, and all of these little critters that determine the health of our waterways. Okay, so this is a lot of words. I'm not going to read it to you. Just wanted to highlight all of the different contaminants that are coming through our stormwater. So you can read this and please let me know if you have any questions. But like I said, we're talking solids, those sediments. The nutrients are toxic, so things like pesticides and herbicides are coming through also. And then we have bacteria and pathogens, which can be detrimental because they can carry viruses or diseases. And so that's another problem in our waterways. Okay, so where are these contaminants coming from? Again, here's a lot of words. I don't need to read it to you, but we have people that over fertilize their lawn. We have leaking septic systems, people that don't pick up their pet waste, and also leaking septic systems can lead to pathogens. You have all of the solids from just general activity, so from construction, from sand that's on the road during the winter, erosion of all of the land. And so you can read all this, but we have a lot of sources of contamination. And when it rains, all of those things are going to end up in our waterways. Okay, so all of the contaminants that are coming from that stormwater runoff are called non-point source pollution, because there's no single pipe that's leaking into the waterways. This is a society-based contamination issue. This is all of our activities across multiple acres of land, across the whole watershed. And so that non-point source pollution can really impact all kinds of aspects of not just human life, but our fish and wildlife are impacted. Here is a heron looking out over a water body, and this is covered with algae because of high fertilizer or high nutrient concentrations. And so this heron is not able to fish there. And we can also have impacts to our recreational activities. Obviously, you don't want to take your boat through an algae infested pond or lake. Commercial fishing is impacted, our tourism is impacted, and obviously drinking water quality is impacted because a lot of our New Jersey drinking water comes from surface water, especially in North Jersey. If you guys, I don't know where you guys are from, but in North Jersey, we have a much higher percentage of our drinking water coming from surface waters, so lakes, reservoirs, and so we really need to protect those surface water bodies. So what can we do to protect our waterways? Well, in case you hadn't guessed, one of the things that we can do to protect our waterways is to install riparian buffers. So the word riparian simply means the area along a river or water body. And so this is just the 10 or 15 feet along that waterway that is acting as a sponge for that stream. And so a riparian buffer are trees, shrubs, and grasses bordering that water body, again, they're acting as a sponge. They help stabilize the stream bank. In a urban or suburban area, it can be as simple as just an area that's not mowed along the riverbank. And so you're just allowing grasses to grow a little longer. You are just making sure that that stream or water body is protected by natural vegetation. And so here is a little graphic showing that you have riparian buffers, not just in your residential or suburban area, but this is also important in agricultural areas as well as urban areas. We really need our urban streams to have buffers as well, so that we have some protection of these streams, and we're doing it in a natural way. Okay, are there any questions so far, Lori? Anything pressing?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, two that are probably pretty relevant. This is a good place to pause. So the first question relates to EAB, the emerald ash borer, and the larvicide that's injected into the ground at the base of the tree. can that, or how does that impact the water, or does it?
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest, I don't know what chemical is being used as that larvicide, so I'm not sure. I don't know if any of the woodland people on the call would be able to answer that, but I could definitely look it up and get back to the participants. I'm just not familiar with what that actual product is. So I'm sorry about that.
No, that's totally fine. Kieran, do you have any thoughts since you're back? Anything?
I think it's imidacloprid. One of them anyway. There's a few different chemicals that are injected, but I don't have any good information about the actual answer to the question as far as what effect it has on the groundwater.
And Neil Hendrickson actually has, oh man, he wrote it in the chat. Good, you can look at it, Kieran. I don't know how to pronounce it. As what?
Yeah,
one of the
benzoate.
Yeah,
that's the most common one. That's right.
Okay, hold on. Let me write that down. But I will look into this because honestly, I don't know, and it is important because obviously our ash trees are being decimated by this pest, and it's important to be aware of what the side effects of this are, and what, you know, if you're trying to save your ash trees, you don't want to poison the water. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. What we can do, Amy, is we can respond to some of the questions that we can answer in my follow-up email. So we always send the recording to people that registered, and maybe we can address some of those questions. So we don't have to answer them now. So
yeah,
I'm sorry. I appreciate the patience.
Neil's saying that it stays in the tree, but that's only for stem injections. The specific question was about soil injections, because I believe that there is a soil drench that you can do for EAB, and I think there's also a soil injection. Although I think a lot of companies do it as a stem injection, and that would just stay in the tree. That shouldn't get into the soil. But there are soil injection treatments for EAB, so that's what the question is referring to.
Perfect. Okay, we'll get back to you, George and Mary, on that one. No problem. And so
go ahead.
Yeah, here's a good question. It's related to what we're talking about right now with the buffers and everything. Are rain gardens part of the urban forestry initiative in New Jersey? Like, would a rain garden have impact like what we're talking about right now?
Absolutely. So I actually took rain gardens out of this talk because I was trying to save time, because I could talk about rain gardens for hours. Rain gardens have amazing benefits, both for water quantity and managing stormwater issues in terms of, wet spots on your property, drainage issues, things like that. But then they are also very good at improving water quality. And so, yes, absolutely. Rain gardens are something that a homeowner could install. They are not difficult. We have a rain garden manual for New Jersey that was created by the Rutgers Water Resources Program and my colleague, Dr. Chris Abrupta. I can send that link to Lori to share with you all. But in case anyone doesn't know, a rain garden is just a slightly depressed area that has special plants that are chosen to be installed into the rain garden, so that they are uptaking a lot of water, they are uptaking contaminants, and they are also providing habitat for pollinators, providing food for birds. We usually recommend native plants for rain gardens, so that you don't have to really care for exotic plants. And so rain gardens are definitely a tool that's important, especially in the urban areas, like you're saying, because they can be installed anywhere. We've got quite a few that Rutgers has installed in Newark. The smallest one I've ever installed was 70 square feet. It's 7 by 10, which is very tiny. And then you can also install very large ones. I have one that I helped install in Maplewood at the Hilton Branch Library that it's huge. The rain garden itself is 2,000 square feet. And so this is a tool that we can use for providing aesthetics, for protecting our waterways, for providing habitat, and then also managing stormwater quantity while improving the water quality. So yes, absolutely. I will send you all the rain garden resources if you guys need this. If you want, we could do another talk just on rain gardens. There's so much to talk about. So yeah, why don't we shelf that? But I would love to provide those resources, and Rutgers does a lot of rain garden work, and there are a lot of informative things out there, fact sheets, manuals, plant lists. The Native Plant Society of New Jersey has a plant list that's excellent for rain gardens. So yes, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. Like I said, I removed it because here I'm going off too much about it. I was trying to focus just on the buffers. But yeah, rain gardens are a great tool for protecting our waterways as well.
Well, I'm glad it was brought up, and that does sound like definitely a whole nother talk that we could do. So I'm going to make note of that, and we will definitely send out those resources. So that would be fantastic.
Okay, good.
All right, we're good to go.
Okay, so moving on. How are we doing on time? 7:30. Okay, that's good. Okay, so how do riparian buffers work? So basically, all of that vegetation is capturing water as well as those contaminants. It's filtering because the plants are doing some work. The soil itself is doing some work before those things hit the waterway. And then those plants are also uptaking certain things. So there are lots of plants that can take up different contaminants. There are plants that obviously will uptake nutrients, so nitrogen and phosphorus, before they get to the waterway. There are certain plants that can remove toxics. There are all kinds of things that these plants can do that are amazing. So it just depends on what you're planting and what you're trying to achieve. But basically, like I said before, that buffer is acting as a sponge to stop that contamination from getting to the water body. And these riparian buffers, like I said, also are important in rural, suburban, and urban areas. And here's a great picture from a Penn State fact sheet on riparian buffers that I have for you guys in the resources at the end of this talk. Here is a riparian buffer being installed in an agricultural area. This is really important for protection of our waterways in these agricultural areas, because all of the waste from animals, as well as fertilizers that are being put on crops and any insecticides, all of those things can end up in our water bodies. But if you have a riparian buffer, treating all of these things before they hit the water body, then everything will be much happier. Your habitats and ecology, you'll have much better biological diversity if you're stopping all of these things. So don't forget that our agricultural areas can do this kind of work as well. It's not just in our suburban and urban areas, but we really want to protect our agricultural water bodies from those agricultural activities. So don't forget that, like I said, I was talking to the panelists earlier, and I have a small farm in Warren County, and we have all kinds of things going on, but the waste management can be tricky, and we really try to protect our water bodies, and to make sure that we're being smart about managing all of our animal waste, and being careful with what we're doing with the land and erosion and all of these things, where we are working to protect our streams and keep our riparian buffers operating. So don't forget that the agricultural sector needs to be responsible with the water bodies as well. Okay. So obviously there are lots of benefits here. So let's just go through them. So the riparian buffer helps provide some groundwater recharge because you have all of that vegetation there. You have soil that's not compacted. That soil is doing amazing things. So the ground is able to be recharged. And then these riparian buffers also promote climate change resiliency. So all that means is that as our climate starts to warm, we are going to have more extreme weather events. We may have more flooding. We may have more extreme storms. We may have more frequent rain events. We may have less frequent rain events if we have droughts. And so these riparian buffers can help us, quote unquote, weather the storm when we have large rain events. If we have, if we have a lot of rain all at once, like if you guys remember Sandy or Tropical Storm Irene, we got 12 inches of rain in 24 hours. And so these types of vegetative systems can protect our buildings, our structures, our homes, because that vegetation and that healthy soil can help soak up some of that and help reduce that peak flow that I was talking about. So these types of systems can really help us adapt and to get through climate change as best we can. So that's also related to flood mitigation, because it's the same thing. We're just managing all that stormwater that's coming through, all those high quantity rain events. But these riparian buffers are also helping to provide some aesthetic benefits as well. So we're beautifying the landscape. We are providing something nice to look at, especially in our urban areas, by protecting those waterways with vegetation and plantings that are chosen specifically for this purpose. We are helping give everybody some green space to provide a little respite in an urban area. And then we can also, obviously, as we've talked about, reduce pollution and erosion because all of those plants are providing structure and kind of an anchor for all of that, all of the soil, all of the stream banks that would wash away or be scoured from that high quantity of stormwater and that high peak flow. So that riparian buffer is providing some protection for that. And that also provides wildlife habitat while also keeping nuisance wildlife out. So what I mean by that is things like Canadian geese. They don't like it if there are tall grasses along a waterway. They really like to just walk into the water directly. And if there are tall grasses and plantings right along the water body's border, they don't like it as much. And so this is a way to attract the wildlife you want to be near the water body while keeping those nuisance geese away from the water body. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, so everyone is here for trees, for our forestry. So let's talk about how good trees are at everything. Trees are amazing. They are the original stormwater management tool. I call them the original green infrastructure. And so there are so many ways that trees are beneficial in not just in riparian buffers, but everywhere. Everyone says the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, and that's true. Everybody should go out and plant trees as often as they can. We have planted over 200 trees on our farm property, and we're trying our best to do our part. But what's so great about trees? Well, basically, they are acting as filters. They help remove contaminants. They are also providing that structure and that anchor that I was talking about to reduce erosion. They can prevent all of these sediments and contaminants from getting into the streams, because like I said, they're just acting as a sponge and just soaking everything up before that contaminant stream gets to our waterway. And the trees also promote infiltration and recharge, because the root system of trees is just leading to a network of tunnels and little, I guess, rivulets that water can flow through. So those tree roots are creating a network of space that water can get down into groundwater and getting down into our base flow for that stream. And then also, obviously, trees provide shade, which is reducing temperature in our waterways, which can really help with many organisms in the water, as well as our amphibians. There are specific fish that breed only in certain temperatures of water. There are frogs and salamanders and all kinds of things that really need a certain temperature in order to complete their reproductive cycle, as well as our macro and micro invertebrates that are also sensitive to temperature. And so those trees can really help cool the water down, because unfortunately, we were talking about all the contaminants that come into stormwater, but another problem with stormwater is that in the summer, the temperature of stormwater is highly elevated. Think about a parking lot that's just baking in the sun during summer, like July or August. And then we have a quick, gully wash or thunderstorm, and all the water coming off of that parking lot is super hot. It's highly elevated in temperature, and it flows into the stream next to that parking lot. So now you have a shot of super warm water going directly into the stream. And like I said before, that can really stress a lot of our aquatic organisms. And so it's not just actual contaminants, but that thermal stress can really impact our aquatic ecosystems as well. Okay. So what else can trees do? Well, trees can hold a lot of water. So as we've talked about, they are stormwater managers forever. So I found this statistic that a healthy 100-foot tall tree has about 200,000 leaves. And this size tree can take 11,000 gallons of water from the soil and release it into the air in a single growing season. So that's just one well-established tree. Now think about all the forests that the parks that you go to. Maybe you have some really nice specimen trees on your own property. I'm sure that you have seen how water is uptaken by trees. You probably don't have many drainage issues near a giant specimen tree like this. These trees are just soaking up water. They are putting it into the atmosphere by evapotranspiration. They are using that water, all kinds of benefits, because trees they're holding the water at the roots, going up into the trunk, into the leaves, out into the atmosphere. And so trees are amazing. So it's not just the leaves. So let's look at how trees manage stormwater. Like I said, the water is stored in the leaves and the bark. When the leaves drop, those leaves are also holding water, and they act as sponges during the fall and into the winter. The root zone is acting as that anchor to prevent erosion and holding the soil in place while absorbing water. And then you have your evapotranspiration back up into the atmosphere. But the leaves themselves can also intercept rainfall. And so they're also preventing water from hitting the ground, which is important during our extreme rain events. Okay. So my area of expertise is stormwater, and this is our industry journal. It's just called Stormwater. And according to an article in Stormwater, the urban forest and how trees affect stormwater had this statistics, and this is from 1996, but the nation's forests are worth at least $400 billion in terms of stormwater management alone. And so this is really important. You may be aware that the country's infrastructure is not doing so well. The American Society of Civil Engineers gave the US a D- in our infrastructure in terms of our piping, our sewers, even our roadways. And so stormwater can be managed by trees, by our forests. And so this is an amazing number that in 1996 we were talking about $400 billion. That, you know, obviously we've had inflation since then. You know, we've had a pandemic where some of our dollars have been devalued. So we're probably well past $500 billion in terms of worth of our forests. So we really need to keep them healthy. We really need to use trees to protect our waterways and to make sure that we're managing stormwater in a natural way. Okay, so what else can the leaves of trees do? So I already mentioned that those leaves are capturing rainfall, and our conifer trees, so our pine trees, our evergreens, can actually retain higher volumes than our deciduous trees. And so if we have more trees, then we have less water hitting the ground. And some canopies can retain the first 2 to 4 milliliters of a rainfall event. And so this is huge. If we have more tree canopy in our urban areas, in areas that have a lot of flooding, then not only are we improving green space and that canopy that's so important in our urban areas to reduce the urban heat island effect, but we're also reducing water. We're managing stormwater before it even becomes stormwater. So it's not just the roots doing all the work, those leaves are doing quite a bit as well. Okay, so I was just talking about roots. And so not only are the roots uptaking that water and getting it to the rest of the tree and just soaking everything up, but as I've said several times, those roots are anchoring the tree, they are anchoring the soil, they are preventing erosion, and then those roots also act as a filter to help remove contaminants as that water is moving from the surface down into our groundwater and down to that base flow for our streams. So the entire tree is really important here. It's not just the roots, not just the leaves, but it's everything coming together. So healthy forests, clean water. Clean water starts with a healthy riparian corridor in a healthy wooded watershed. So the more vegetation we have, the more of that buffer that we have around our water bodies, and especially our rivers and streams, the better everything will be. We'll have a healthier ecosystem. Our aquatic organisms will be happier. You know, we'll be able to enjoy nature a lot more with more vegetation, with more places for our wildlife to live, for more shading of all of that water. And so we really want to promote these riparian buffers. And like I said, that buffer it doesn't even have to include trees if it's not possible, or if you're just planting trees now, it'll take a while for those trees to establish. And so really, even tall grasses, shrubs, anything to provide a little bit of protection for those waterways is really important. And so, like I said before, if you're in a suburban area or, you know, a a homeowners association that has a waterway running through it, just establishing a no mowing zone can really improve the health of that water body. So just give it 10 or 15 feet, let the grass grow. And like I said, not only will you improve the water quality, but you can also have wildlife coming in. You'll provide habitat for all kinds of things. So healthy forests, clean water, make sure you do what you can. And I know, I was told that most of the people on these webinars are woodland owners, but if you don't own a forest or any aspect of a forest, just plant trees on your own property. You don't have to have a water body to start planting trees. But again, this talk was focusing on riparian buffers, but this is a pitch for plant as many trees as possible. There are lots of native trees that will do really well here, and the state has its own tree forestry, tree nursery for native New Jersey trees. They do a sale every year, so you could definitely check that out as well. And so I wanted to show you a tool that may be helpful to you. It's called iTree, and it is a website. It's itreetools.org, and they have all kinds of things to help you figure out the canopy of where you live, and canopy, like future canopy. You can help design your tree plantings. There are also hydrology tools, so you can figure out how much stormwater you're keeping out of a water body, or how much water your trees will uptake. There are so many cool things here. You can also look at how to prioritize where to plant trees on a specific property or in a specific area. And this is an amazing resource that is from USDA Forest Service. I think the State University of New York is involved in this. There are all kinds of partners, and there are just so many resources here. So please check this out. I just wanted to show you a couple of the tools that are here. So these are just some screenshots that I took. So iTree has its own YouTube page with all kinds of videos to teach you how to use it. There's also an iTree Academy that will walk you through with actual instructors. And so you can, whatever you're looking for, take a look at these videos and see how to use it, see what you need to do. Now, just to be clear, the actual iTree tool only runs on Windows-based desktops. But there is what's it called? Not a loophole, but a workaround for anyone using a Mac. So just check out the support and the resources on the website. And this tool is so cool. There's so many different ways to use this, and I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of it. They are constantly updating it. They are on version 6. At this point. The last time I gave this talk, they were on version 5, so they update fairly regularly. So let's see what else we have. So this is the iTree Hydro, is helping you figure out how trees will impact the hydrological cycle, how you can figure out stream flow and water quality based on impervious cover, based on what's happening in your urban area. So iTree Hydro itself doesn't exist anymore, but they released a new tool called Hydro Plus, but it's all part of the iTree suite of tools. And so it'll show you what the natural hydrology system would be at a spot versus the disturbed. So what's actually there with the buildings and the impervious cover. And it's just really cool, especially if you are, let's just say, a Rutgers environmental steward or someone doing doing work in your municipality, in your county, and trying to understand the impacts and the benefits of tree plantings, or trying to figure out your tree canopy. You know, there's just so many cool things here. So please take a look at this. It's awesome. I highly recommend it for anybody doing anything with trees, you know, the woodland stewards, anybody. So check it out. And then the website also has so many resources. There's a lot of support. There is a forum that you can ask other users. You know, I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z. How do I figure this out? They also have a newsletter. There's just really cool stuff. I don't want to take too much time because I know we're getting close to the Q&A session, but please, this is a really cool site and take a look. Okay, so bottom line here is that we have development, we have stormwater, and we have climate change that are all impacting our water resources, and we need to protect them. Trees and riparian buffers can provide us with tools to protect those waterways. And there are resources out there to help us figure out the best way to use these tools. Like, you know, sure, I'm going to plant trees, but where do I plant trees? What trees should I plant? How do I quantify the benefits of these? And don't forget that regular people are doing this work. It's not just foresters. It's not just arborists. You know, people that just own property and own land, even people that don't own anything but are working in their county, in their municipality, can all do our part to protect our forested lands, to protect our waterways, and to keep our ecosystems as healthy as possible. So here are some resources. Again, here is the link to the iTree website. And then there's an amazing fact sheet from Penn State on riparian buffers. It does, this particular one focuses on wildlife, because I didn't even really get into the wildlife benefits of riparian buffers other than habitat. But there are a lot of cool reasons to install riparian buffers just for wildlife. And then this is a stream buffer planting guide from New York State, Tompkins County. So take a look at that if you're looking for some guidance on what types of things to plant, especially if you're looking at grasses or shrubs. And so that's something cool from a nearby state that could be helpful. So take a look at that. I'd like to thank one of my colleagues, Pat Rector, who is retired from Extension, but she took a lot of the pictures that you saw in this. And then Chris Abrupta, the Rutgers Water Resources Program, provided some of this content as well. And then if you guys need me, here is all of my info. Here's my email. This is my personal cell phone because I'm not in the office at the moment with our pandemic and our lockdown here, although things are opening up. So please don't be shy. Please reach out to me. This is a picture at Stokes. So yeah, I'm here to answer questions. And if you guys have any comments, or if you want to have a talk for the next couple minutes, and thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amy. Great. Lots of comments coming through. For attendees, I suggest you pop over to the chat because there's a lot of resources and information that have been posted in there. So it'd be great to stop over there and check that out. And then we should probably get to some of the questions if it's okay. And I'm going to ask Kieran to help me with that.
Yep.
Sam, do you want to start, Kieran?
Sure. I'm looking for some of the ones that are a little bit more general, because there are a lot. So there are a lot of specific questions, and I'll say I think we generally try to start with the more general, broad stuff that's applicable to more people, and then if there's time, as we get towards the end of the talk, we can get into some of the more specific ones. And we're not getting into anything very specific tonight. For those of you who are asking about very specific circumstances, we're probably not going to be going into those levels of detail. So Peg asked if you're going to say anything about the huge importance of wetlands, especially exceptional value wetlands, which by law require a 150-foot buffer, and how they also create part of the riparian system.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Wetlands are a very important tool for protecting our waterways and for helping us mitigate flooding. Obviously, a lot of our wetlands have been impacted already in New Jersey and even across other states. But yeah, they do require a buffer. Any work in wetlands areas requires all kinds of permits from DEP. We are really trying hard to protect our wetlands as much as possible. And so absolutely, wetlands are basically a natural riparian buffer, and they are doing that work of providing protection naturally. They soak things up. They help us manage our large storm events. They are helping reduce pollution and contamination. Yeah, they are protected by the state because of benefits that they provide. And so, some people see the wetlands protections as burdensome, like developers and construction companies, but they are there to protect our drinking water, to help us protect those waterways, which are precious, especially in New Jersey, which is so highly developed. So yes, thank you for mentioning wetlands. They're a precious resource for sure, and our natural riparian buffers, basically.
Great. And that kind of leads right into this other question that Judith had asked, which is, when they act as a sponge, does that affect the vegetation of the riparian buffer? Does it make it more difficult for them to exist as a natural or a healthy environment? And I think that she might have been asking this, especially when you were talking about processing pollutants.
Right. Yeah. So I don't want to be annoying, but it's going to depend on several things. It depends on the contaminant itself. It depends on the type of plant. But there are lots of plants that can process different things. So there are plants that can uptake metals without being damaged by them. There are plantings that can uptake some of the toxics. So like those insecticides, those things that are foreign in the environment without being damaged. But then there are others that uptake those contaminants and they are damaged. They will die off. And unfortunately, sometimes when that die-off occurs, then those contaminants are released back into the environment. And so it really depends on which exact contaminant we're talking about and which exact plant we're talking about. There's a lot of research on this type of process, because it's called bioremediation, where something natural is being used to manage that contamination. And so I hate to cop out, but it really depends on the contaminant we're talking about, as well as the plant. But there are lots of riparian buffer plants that will uptake these kinds of things without being damaged.
Great. Laura, you want to take a couple?
Sure. So I think Deborah's question is a general question that might be applicable to a lot. So when planting tree seedlings in a riparian area, any general guidelines about how much space should be maintained between seedlings? Obviously, one factor would be the size of the tree, but any general thoughts on that?
Yeah, so this one is a little tricky also, because it's going to depend on if you are providing protection from animals such as deer. Like, are you putting tubes around those trees to protect them? Are you providing some structure and protection for them? If not, then you should plant very densely and hope that some of them survive, but unfortunately we have a lot of deer pressure in New Jersey. Also, very young seedlings are also susceptible to rodent damage, especially in the winter. And so I would recommend dense plantings, again, if you are not going to be protecting them, but if someone will be maintaining and keeping an eye on things, then you can spread them out according to their mature size. In general, if you're not planting 500 trees, along the stream bank, I would recommend planting them based on their mature size and the spacing that is recommended for that tree species. But again, if you want a little bit of insurance, you may want to plant them more densely and keep an eye on them, and you can move things as they grow and as they survive all of these things like rodents and winter and deer. And so it's really a little bit of a gamble, because if you're not there every day and watching things, seedlings and saplings are real tasty to animals. And so if you can't protect them, I would plant them more densely than you would normally.
Okay, fantastic answer. Thank you. So Roger it's a little bit of a specific question, but it might just come back to you as extension. Lives in Jersey City. They have a combined sewer system which overflows into the Hudson during storms. They can only have so much riparian buffers along the river, and their tree canopy is poor. It's 14%. You probably know this already. So is there any help for them? Can Hudson County Extension help them at all?
Yeah, so the Hudson County office just opened. They only have a 4-H person there, which is our youth development. But I have worked with Jersey City on these kinds of things, and also Chris Abrupta with the Water Resources Program. He is our state extension specialist in water resources. He has worked in Jersey City quite a bit. And so please send me an email and we'll connect you to the right people, because this is so important, and combined sewers are a major problem for many reasons. But yeah, we can't just plant our way to good water quality in Jersey City. There needs to be some infrastructure change. We need to do some structural stormwater management, unfortunately. So yes, please reach out to me, or I can send the info for the Water Resources Program directly if you'd rather talk to our state specialist. But I have done some work in Jersey City. And so yeah, please reach out to us. We can help, but unfortunately the Hudson County office is just a 4-H person at the moment. Hopefully we'll get some more funding, but our friend Claudia is not going to be able to help you with this. So we'll help you out.
I guess that's probably just good advice for anybody in any county. Like, try your county extension office and see if they can either assist you or lead you in the right direction. It's always a great resource that I think a lot of people forget they have, that we have. So thank you for what you do, by the way. Okay, Karen, you're up.
Carl asked, are there zones within a riparian forest buffer, such as stream bank protection, filtration, and uniform flow distribution?
Yeah, so there are those different areas, because you're going to plant different things based on which part of the riparian zone you're working on. It's similar to rain gardens, if anyone's familiar with that, where you have the area that's wet more often, you have the area that's wet some of the time, and then you have the area that's dry. And so yes, absolutely, you're going to plant different things based on where you are, where you're interested in planting and what you're working on. And the Tompkins County guide that I had posted in the resources has some of that information. But yeah, I can provide you with more resources specifically about the zones of the buffer. Again, I was kind of doing the the 100-foot overview for this talk, but yeah, there's lots of information out there, and I can get you specific information on that.
Great.
Amy, I told you that our group was very active and had lots of great questions, right?
Yeah, you warned me, but this is great. I'm glad that people are so interested in this.
Yeah, and the questions keep coming. So we have another one from Carl. He asked, when planting riparian buffers, should tree tubes be used to protect the young trees from deer grazing?
Yeah. If you can afford it, I would recommend it. Again, not just for the deer, but also mice. We have planted so many trees, and it wasn't the deer that got them. It was the mice during the winter. And so please, if you can, try to protect your trees as much as possible. I know it can really add to the expense, but it's worth it if you don't have to keep rebuying and replanting your seedlings. So if you have the means, I would recommend it. Yes.
Thank you. Want to take the next two, Lori?
All right, let's see. Where are you leaving off?
I guess you can start with Peg.
Okay, Peg. Okay, so hi, Peg, by the way. It's good to have you on. So she wants to know a question about in areas where there are steep slopes, we know that less than 5% of rainfall percolates into the soil. The rest runs off of stormwater. This is another reason why towns should limit development on critically steep slopes greater than 15%. Any comment on that, or?
Yeah, that's a great comment. It is easier said than done, for sure. There are ways to slow down that runoff and to terrace the land, and things like rain gardens or swales could be installed on slopes if you engineer them properly. But yeah, steep slopes are tricky for sure. They require a lot more planning and design compared to anything on a flat surface. But yeah, that is definitely a problem. I've encountered that. Like I said, I work in Essex County, and places like Milburn, which are basically on on a mountain that goes straight down and flows into other places. They have a lot of stormwater issues there, and those steep slopes, they really are tricky. And I agree with you that those steep slope developments should be managed, and it's a tricky thing that would require a lot of resources to engineer to manage. So yeah, I agree with you. But I don't know the answer. It's definitely a policy change, and we are getting there. Like the new stormwater rules are requiring green infrastructure on developed sites, and we've made a lot of headway, but we're not all the way there. So yeah, maybe steep slopes will be the next step. But yeah, the state under this administration is definitely working to manage stormwater and to be aware of these things. So hopefully that work will continue.
So Carl had another question. Is there a minimum width of a riparian buffer in urban areas? Saying maybe like 5 to 10 feet. Are there any minimums suggested?
Yeah, so most of the literature I've been seeing is recommending 10 to 15 feet. And that can be tricky in an urban area, obviously, where we are very pressed for space. But as 10 feet is manageable for a lot of spaces, and really just not mowing for those 10 feet can really make a difference. And we've seen it in our very populated areas, in our parks, in our green space, and it also takes some of the burden off the facilities folks and the DPW guys to let that naturalize a little bit. And so there's multiple benefits, but usually I'm seeing 10 to 15 feet as the minimum to provide those benefits.
Okay, sounds great. So I'm going to remind the attendees to keep checking the chat, because I'll tell you, they're putting some really great resources in there. So
Good.
Yeah, so like Clark mentioned about short tree tubes, 12 to 18 inches to protect against the mice and voles, put a wire cage to protect from deer. Sometimes the tube, one problem with tubes is tree flop. When the tube is finally removed, the tree has not been exposed to wind. So, so there's a lot of things to consider, but still worth doing for sure. Another thing that showed up, and Andy, you had asked everybody to give you suggestions on possible topics for future. And one of the things that showed up is it tending to invasive species, right? So I want to think about that again. But Girth asked a question specific to stream corridors. Like invasives obviously are all pervasive. Are there challenges that our stream corridors face from invasives? That's for Amy.
Yeah, absolutely. There are lots of invasives that like water. So Japanese knotweed is the one that comes to mind. It's so aggressive and so pervasive, but because it likes the water, you're not going to use an herbicide or something chemical, because you really need to protect that stream. So unfortunately, the removal of something like that requires something mechanical, something manual, where you're digging, you're removing, you are mowing. There are ways to deal with those invasives, but you really need to be careful along our waterways. And so, yeah, those special considerations. I mean, unfortunately, there are lots of chemicals to deal with our invasives, and sometimes municipalities or counties make the decision to use something chemical so that they can manage these invasives, but it's in the interest of saving money or saving mowing, or but there are trade-offs. You really want to protect the waterway. You want to make sure that you're not damaging the environment more by removing that invasive through chemical means than doing something like mowing or cutting or digging. But those invasives, they're invasive for a reason. They are tenacious, they outcompete things, they are left alone by our native animals. And also they reproduce, usually many of our invasives reproduce in multiple ways. And so even if you pull out, the rhizome, or you get to it before the seed spreads, then you have something else to deal with. And so it's a tricky situation for sure, but we need to make sure that our county and municipal governments are aware of our waterways and our concern for using chemicals and herbicides on those invasives.
Perfect. So Monica had a question, and I think you referred to an easy list or a basic list, and I'm sure we can reference that resource. But she wanted to know, is there a simple, like if you know nothing else about what to choose, a list that consider like a basic dozen specimens that could always be a good choice?
Yeah, so I think it would be best for me to just send you that information, because I don't have them all memorized off the top of my head.
Wouldn't expect that, Amy.
Yeah, and
not a problem.
I'm not a plant person. I don't know. I wish that Rick McCoy could say something here, because he's our native plant expert, and I'm sure he's got some recommendations. But yeah, I
he had to pop off a little bit early. Chad said that he had to leave early, but
okay,
great job and all that stuff. So yeah, but if you want to send something to me, I'm happy to share it with the group in our follow-up email. So I'll send them a copy of the presentation and any resources that we're able to share. So Monica, we'll get that out to you. Same thing, David, similar question, a resource for trees and plants that uptake pollutants. So same deal. Okay.
Yeah, and there are a lot of trees and plants that thrive along our waterways, and you want to make sure that you're choosing something that will be happy there, and not just, oh well, I put something here and now it died because it got too wet. You want to make sure that you're planting smartly. So I'll pass those resources along.
Sounds wonderful. Okay, Kieran, anything else in there we want to touch base on? We have a few more minutes, just a few more left.
Carl asked, how is a riparian buffer different from a vegetated filter strip?
Yeah, so usually a vegetated filter strip or swale is normally more of a depression. So it's capturing water from a specific source, like a roadway, along it. Those vegetated filter strips are usually along a roadway, some kind of paved area, but a lot of those filter strips are structural. So they have, a layer of gravel. They may have a filter fabric underneath them. They may have a layer of a different size gravel to really make sure that the water is flowing through there. Where a riparian buffer is a lot more natural. You're talking mostly about plants. There may be a structural fabric installed just to help anchor the stream bank if it's been eroded. But usually those vegetated filter strips are an engineered system. Like you have different layers of different materials, and then the plants at the surface, where the riparian buffer is more of a natural system.
Cool, thank you. And I guess there's not a whole lot else that's not like very specific. There have been some questions about specific, like buffer strips and things like that. Those are generally going to be in your local ordinances.
Yeah, yep.
So, and John Newton made a good comment that your forester, who is needed for farmland preservation, can answer a lot of the questions that you may have on your property for these sorts of things. So that's a good point.
Yes, please get in touch with a forester. If you don't have one, there are certified ones listed on New Jersey. I've seen them on the DEP website. The state, I'm sure the State Forestry Association has resources also. They're so knowledgeable, and yeah, definitely find out about your local ordinances and local setbacks and things like that. There are not that many statewide things relating to this. The wetlands are one of the things that we do have, those statewide buffer zones and things like that. But unfortunately, as a home rule state, our municipalities are in charge of a lot of these things.
There was just one more that was in the chat from Susan. She asked, how do you deal with all the leaves that fall into a pond that's fed like midway in a county stream? So just like that accumulation of leaves in those ponds.
Yeah, so that's a tricky one, because if you are removing anything from the bottom of a water body, it's often considered dredging, which is a process that requires a lot of different things. It may require a permit from DEP. You need to figure out if what you're taking out is contaminated in any way. Unfortunately, there are a lot of rules surrounding this dredging. So the best thing to do would be to try to limit how many leaves are ending up in there in the first place, which I know is difficult. So that one's really tricky, because those leaves are presenting a problem. But it's difficult to remove anything from the bottom of a waterway without triggering, permits and all kinds of things from DEP. So if you have a specific question, please email me directly, like, what town you're from, all those things, and we can look into it. But yeah, leaves in waterways are a problem, and they are difficult to deal with. So I empathize.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you again. Great presentation. Lots of fantastic information. Appreciate that, Amy. Appreciate all of our participants and all the great conversation and questions. Andy, anything? Want to add anything before we wrap it up?
We had a couple topics came up for future presentations. The rain garden certainly sounds like an interesting one.
Could do that one. Yeah, we could talk about rain gardens for hours. I have so much to say.
Yeah, and the other one, of course, is invasive species in forests, and that is a real problem in New Jersey. And
so I know some folks at Rutgers as well as some other places. If you need an expert for that, because I am not that person, but I can connect you to some speakers for invasive species for sure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, that would definitely be great.
Yeah.
And then, of course, next month, right? We're back third Thursday of the month, every month, Backyard Forestry Online. Super excited for that presentation.
Yeah, that's Sustainable Jersey City is presenting their their open tree mapping initiative for mapping all the trees in Jersey City and all the benefits from they've been able to calculate from that tool. And also the developments they've got. They're incorporating machine learning for species ID, so the volunteers can have their IDs confirmed through things like the LeafSnap type software. They're building in iTree's own algorithms into the natural benefits calculators. It's really a pretty well-developed tool. It's a pretty impressive and well-developed tool.
Okay, hopefully we'll see everybody next month then. I'll get that registration up right away. And again, send this copy of tonight's recording with a bunch of resources. Amy and I will work on that for you, and then we'll be back in touch soon. I hope everybody has a good evening. Again, thank you.
Everybody. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.